Hey, Jason, thank you so much for joining us on this call today.
It's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I think I want to quickly start on with some questions about the vision for KW in the area of technology for agents. Can you share a little bit about that vision for agents in the realm of technology?
Sure. We looked up 4 or 5 years ago and realized that technology wasn't going away. It wasn't like a fad. People hadn't gotten over it. It was here to stay. And it's become so pervasive in every part of our life. If you think about it for a moment, you all are using a tech stack in your personal lives. And it might be, here in the US, I would say I use Amazon and I use Netflix and I use Facebook. And some of those are probably similar. And then there's, I'm sure, a whole suite of different ones that you're using. But it would make sense that if technology is going to be part of our daily lives, then it would then become part of our businesses. And when we looked up and we realized that most of the technology for real estate agents was designed and owned and conceived by people who were not in the real estate business, that was very concerning for us. And we made a decision that if real estate agents were going to stay at the center of the transaction, side by side with the consumer, then we were going to need to create our own technology that solved the problems that real estate agents have. We were going to enhance the technology that consumers use to look and think about real estate. And we were committed to driving the cost of technology for the realtor down to zero or as close to zero as we could get it. That was the guiding vision.
And in order to do that, you guys have to disrupt yourself, right? You have to like really think about how do we just go virtually based, like how Gary Keller says it, virtually based, physically enhanced. What was that feeling like in the past 5 years when you just started that journey? How did that look like? What was that how did you go across that hurdle and say, let's just cut it off and just do this right now?
That was really scary, especially for me. I've been a real estate agent for 20 years and I never really used very much technology. And so the idea that all of a sudden I was going to have to start using it or thinking about using it in every aspect of my business was a scary one. And so what I did was I decided on a few baseline truths that I believe are never going to change. Number one, people do business with people they like. I just believe that's a universal truth. Number two, we're not creating more buyers and sellers. People buy and sell real estate, whether we are in the real estate business or not. And they buy or sell it because they have life events. They get a job, they lose a job, they get rich, they get poor, they find love, they get divorced, they have a kid, they become an empty nester, they get a new job, they retire. Like these are the reasons. And once I was clear on those two things, then it became much easier to think about technology. Technology needs to make me more likable to more people. That's it. And technology needs to help me be in the right place at the right time in more people's lives. Once I got really comfortable with those two ideas, then all the scariness kind of went away. And what we started doing was asking ourselves the question, what activities do we do on a daily basis? How do we grow our real estate business? How do we run our real estate business? And then how can technology either make those things all happen faster, cheaper, or more human? And we literally spent years going through every aspect of the real estate business and how it's being done here and asking those questions. The answers became our roadmap, and we drew out a 4-year roadmap. And since then, we've continued to improve on it. And that's where we are today.
Yeah. And that has led how KWRI looked at the technology is just not getting vendors to come in and just give us tech at a cheaper cost, but to build the entire platform from scratch and
Well,
call ourselves a technology company, right? And people say you're crazy, right?
well,
Right.
everybody said we were crazy, and people made fun of us, and that's okay. Everybody always makes fun of new ideas, but it was the right idea when now the rest of the industry is kind of trying to play catch up, which is a really difficult thing to play when it comes to technology, because technology, good tech anyway, it just takes time. No matter how much money you have, it just takes time to build it. And the truth is, we had been in vendor relationships before. And you look up at a lot of our competitors, you know, the Remaxes and the Century 21s and the Coldwell Bankers of the world. And we know what it is to be in the relationships with tech companies that they're in, which is it often will start cheap, but it never really ends cheap. And it's often a product, and you have no say in what happens with that product. The only way to actually control your technology is to own it and build it yourself. You don't see Amazon using bolt-on technology. You don't see Google using that. You don't see Facebook didn't say who's the best vendor we can get to build out this feed. Like no real tech companies say that. And so why should the residential real estate agent have to say that? We thought that was absurd.
We are very excited in Malaysia right now because campaigns just got live on 16th of September. And I remember this date very clearly because that was Malaysia Day, the day we celebrate the formation of Malaysia. At the same time, it was during Mega Camp. And I was playing around with campaigns. Fast forward the past 6-7 weeks, we ran about 409 campaigns in Malaysia. We generated about 3,000 leads for under $1.30 per lead.
Wow.
By just that's crazy, right? It's unheard of, right? And that's 90% of the cost per lead that an average agent in Malaysia will spend. 90% off. Can you kind of share with us like some realities? How is this possible? What's that relationship that Facebook and KW Command has in that journey of enabling the agents to have that kind of cost per lead?
You know, what's really interesting is you can go out to a third-party purveyor and try to run the exact same Facebook ads that you're running. And usually you'll see that the leads you get through Command will end up being cheaper. And there's some reasons for that. Number one, we're operating at such a large scale that the amount of data that we're coming back in real time for us to keep incrementally improving on it is astounding. And there are little things that you would never think of, like placement. How far down in somebody's feed does the ad come up? How many times do they have to move it before they see it? Our hook points, are we able to stop the scroll fast enough? How quickly can we get them to then, that's a squeeze page, can we get them to the actual landing page? How fast and how accurate can we make the process where they enter their information? All of these things start to play into it. And you realize that there's hundreds of different variables that give our agents right now what I would deem to be an unfair advantage in the marketplace. If I had to tell you where we're headed with this, is that we'll start to better understand the hook points for the consumer. There's a great book here. There's a great book actually called Hook Point, written by a gentleman named Brendan Kane, who has been helping consult here at KWRI. He also wrote a book called 1 Million Followers, really a dynamic thinker. And the argument that he makes is that there are points in our lives when we're more apt to click on these sort of things in Facebook. And he's an expert in helping people uncover what those hook points are. The cost of the leads you'll see will continue to go down, and you'll see the ease by which you can run a campaign, which already I think it's amazingly easy. We're at an average time of about 4.5 minutes when somebody starts making an ad to when they actually push submit. And as we keep lowering the time and lowering the cost, we'll see more agents doing it. I would like to caution your folks, though, if I can. It would be a tremendous mistake to be generating these sort of leads at this sort of cost and then not follow up with these people over the long term with frequency and intensity. And there's a drawing that we've been using for years to talk about it, and you're probably familiar with it. It's this drawing here. And the way that this works, just really quickly, is that at the top of this point, this is the day that somebody buys a home with you as a real estate agent, and you collect your commission and they get their property. If that's the case, then this right here, this is the very next day, because no one buys a home the day after they buy a home. You all know that. It then means, though, that these are the points where they're going to buy their next properties. And so here in the US, the average time between home purchases is 3 to 7 years. I don't know what it is in Malaysia, but you fill in the number. This means, right, that every single day past this day, the lead kind of goes up in value as you get closer to the next day they want to buy a house. The problem that we have as an industry is if I gave you a lead right here, this close, you would say, this is the best lead ever. But if I give you a lead down here, you say the leads are no good. But the truth is, each of these people represent the exact same future financial opportunity. They're both still going to buy 3 houses. The only difference is when it starts. So everybody in your life right now is somewhere between here and here. And if you knew them well enough, you'd be able to go and you could start plotting them on this map. That's just truth. We have to be very careful that as you create more and more Facebook opportunities, they're not leads, they're people. And so as you meet more and more people, you don't discard any of them. And you simply follow up with them over time, because when they get here, that's when they're finally ready to talk to you. And this is why email campaigns like the monthly neighborhood nurture, this is why things like a quarterly phone call to the people, this is why following up with them becomes so important, because every single human that you generate from Facebook or any other sort of lead generation who actually lives in a house is somewhere on this document. We must never forget that. As soon as we start treating them like leads and not like people, we're going to lose. And I think that's a very important point.
And this just validates that the lead generation model in the MREA is still so valid right now, despite of how technology is, because technology is just the enabler, right? The models are really the way we interact with people, and technology helps us do it even much more efficiently.
That's right. And you guys have all seen this drawing a million times. I'm going to hold it up here. There's only 3 parts of the real estate business. We have lead generation, we have follow-up, and we have transacting. Any way you want to lead generate is fine. All I'm telling you is Facebook leads through command is the first time that with no additional effort, while you're sleeping, you can be generating leads. But if you think you're going to go from here to here without the follow-up in the middle, you're mistaken.
Just have one last question, Jason. Just one last question. Now, there are many agents that's been with us for more than 20 to 30 years, because we are a 38 years old company in Malaysia. And a lot of them are not embracing technology yet, but they're still doing very, very well. What are some of your advice for those people? What is that? How do we start? Where do we start right now? Because we know we have so much in technology right now in command. It can be overwhelming. How do you advise us to embrace those technology right now?
I would tell you that you're probably embracing more technology than you think you are. So people say to me all the time, I don't use any technology in my business. And then I say, well, do you use a cell phone? And they're like, sure. And I'm like, great. Do you use text message? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. And I'm like, super. Do you keep your people in a list anywhere? And they're like, yeah. So you're actually using a bunch of technology. And so I think you all should come to realize that you're already somewhat tech enabled. And I also don't think you should feel any pressure. If you're having great success, the last thing that we want to do is harm that success. But you might want to ask yourself the question, is my business moving forward benefited most by having more leads, or having greater follow-up, or having better transactions? And I'm not saying that the answer isn't yes to all of them. What I am suggesting is maybe over the next, look forward into 6 months from now. Which part of your business, if you think about these 3 things, is most deficient moving forward? Do you need more leads? Do you need better follow-up? Or do you need more help transacting the business? Just pick one. And then once you pick one, let one of us tell you the one thing, not the 10 things, but the one thing in command that can help you with that. Because if you told me, Jason, I need more leads, I would tell you, let's get into campaigns right away. But if you said, Jason, I have a ton of people in my life, I just don't follow up with them enough. You know how you would know that? Ask yourself the question, how many times a day or a week do you get a phone call from somebody who says, hey, I'm ready to sell my home, or hey, I'm ready to buy my home? If you're not getting what you deem to be the right number of those calls, you have a follow-up problem. And if that's the case, let us show you one thing in Command that can help you do that. Remember, guys, we're not trying to go from I don't use tech to all I do is tech. And we're not trying to go from 10 sales to 10,000. But let us help you get 3, 5, 7, 10 more deals in 2021 without causing a ton of pain in your life. And then look up and ask the question, now that I'm doing that one thing, what's the next thing I want to do? Think about this like you would think about anything organic. Organic relationships grow organically, incrementally, one step at a time. Think about the people that you're in deep relationship with. You didn't go and get married on day one. You got to know them. You learned pieces about their personality that you liked. You may have learned pieces that you didn't really like. You learned their stories. You learned who they were. That's all we're asking you to do with Command, is take your time and let's make small changes, one thing at a time. And if we don't make your life better, hold us accountable to that, because we're here to make your life better. That's the only reason that there's 350 of us that show up here every day, because the strength at Keller Williams has nothing to do with Austin, Texas. It's your relationships with your customers. That's why the dream that is Keller Williams continues to be realized. And I just want you guys to know that we're so grateful for each and every one of you allowing us to be in business with you. It's the greatest honor we can have.
Thank you so much, Jason, for your time and your words of wisdom and your encouragement. Just to let you know, we are all very encouraged and very excited with the technology that's in play and with all the systems and models that we have. This has changed a lot of people's life in our country right now. I mean, we have a lot of life-changing stories. I'm sure JP will share with you guys, but it's really have been a remarkable 14 months, and COVID has exponentially allowed us to even have more of these stories. So thank you so much, Jason and the team. Please send our love and our regards to everyone. Keep doing what you are doing. We are cheering for you. 14 hours away from the other part of the world. So thank you so much, Jason. You have a good one. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, everybody.